Alright, so first you want to remove the 8 stock screws that are up underneath. You'll use a 7mm socket on these. There's 8 of them all the way along the bottom. Alright, so first what you want to do is you're going to get one of the silver screws with washer, and you're going to put it in this second hole to go into the stock hole that's here. You're going to do one for each side, because we're starting with the center section, because we won't be reusing those stock screws that we removed. So you put it in here, and sometimes they can be a little bit hard to find where the screw goes into. You'll get it up in there. So do this one, and then the same for the other side. So you'll have 2 screws, one in this one, and then the other one in this second hole here. So the second hole on each side, you're going to put one of the silver screws in. Okay, once you have the center section held up with the 2 stock screw holes, the second hole from the outside, then you're going to move to the outside. Whether you've got a winged version or non-winged version, it's the same install. But you're going to take those same silver number 6 screws and washers, and you'll find the stock holes that you pulled those screws out from earlier. And then you're going to install it, screw through the slots. And again, some of these can be pretty tricky to get them up in there. But just get these installed and don't tighten them too tight, because you're going to leave them a little bit loose so that you can slide it around, because we've got the slots. So if you've got a wide body or a non-wide body, then you can pull these in and out so that you can get the distance from the side of your car that you like, that looks good to you. So you can slide it in and out so you can get the desired distance from the side of your car. That's why we have the slots on there. And plus, if you've got the wide body, your car would be poking it a little bit more than that. So you would just adjust this accordingly. Okay, so then you want to take the 1/2-inch screws. Then you have these 2 countersunk holes here, because the center section will be on top of the side pieces. And you want to take the 1/2-inch screw on there and the nylock nut. Just gonna get them started. And I always put the nylock nut with the flatter side facing up, facing towards the bolt. And this is where you need your Allen key and the 3/8" socket. And then don't tighten them all the way right now. Just get them kind of tightened just so it holds it together, because you're still going to want to look at everything and possibly adjust the center section, make sure everything is centered with it, and also that your side pieces are in their exact position. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. All right, so then you want to make sure that the EMP logo's centered up here. With it being in its stock holes, that pretty much gets you centered. And then you can come over to the sides and make sure that the back here is pretty close to the edge inside your wheel well here, so that it's pushed back enough and that you've got your adjustment that you want here. And then just do the same for the other side, just making sure that you're lined up pretty close to the back. Got your adjustment how you like it. And then you come back and tighten the 4 bolts, 2 on each side. You come back and tighten these with the Allen wrench and the 3/8" socket. Go ahead and get those fully tightened. All right, so once you have both sides with your nylock nuts and everything holding the center section to the sides, you've got your stock holes, everything screwed in, then you can start putting in these black-headed screws. And these will go into the remaining holes. There are 5 on each side. And then there's more in the center section. But basically each of these holes, you just need to push the splitter up to where it meets the body. Hold the splitter tight to the body. And get it screwed in. And you also don't want to use power tools to get it all the way tight. What we do is we install them all in, and then we go back and hand tighten each one of these. And you don't want to tighten these too much because you can strip out the plastic on the bumper. So make sure that you hand tighten for the final tightening on all of these screws that are holding it up underneath. The only screws that you want to get really tight are the ones with the nylock nuts, those bolts. Okay, so then on the center section, do the same thing with the black-headed screws. Getting them installed. And then if you're by yourself, you can actually use your knee to hold it up because you want to try to get the splitter up as close as you can so there's as small a gap as possible between the car and where the screw hole is. And press it up in there and start the screw. And then it will actually start pulling the plastic down to the splitter. But again, don't tighten these too tight because you're going to go back and tighten each one by hand. Also, we like to use this handy little 90-degree tool here on our drill, so you don't actually even have to jack the car up. We just have it pulled in, and you can drive it up on a board or whatever you'd want to, and just use this to get everything in. All right, then you're going to want to go with a hand screwdriver. I like to use a stubby on these, and hand tighten the rest of them in. You'll see that there'll be a little bit of a gap. And then you can also look, from the top, so you can see in between and make sure that you're getting it, good and tight up against the car. But again, not tightening it so much to where you're stripping the plastic out. So you get it to where it's fairly tight, but where you're not going to strip it out. And you'll also want to go back and tighten up the silver screws, the ones that are in the stock holes. And those are actually going into metal clip nuts. So it's a lot less likely that you would strip those out. So you can get these, decently tight, but again, don't over tighten. And then do the rest for all the black-headed screws and the silver screws on each side and the center section. Get them all hand tightened. All right, so now we're going to install the splitter support rods. And the design on these, this is actually a sacrificial piece that once it sticks through, sticks down a little further than your splitter to help protect it. And then we also use 3/4 inch screws, so they stick down a little bit once you put them in. And they also give you some protection so that the screws in this get hit before your splitter gets hit. It can save you quite a few times before either of these would wear out. But once you get this put in there, you slide this piece into that slot here. Sometimes it can be a little tricky. Sometimes it'll go right in like that one does, but sometimes, if there's a little more powder coat on there, it can be a little bit tight. You might just have to, get some of the powder coat off the inside of the slot on the support rod. But then you'll take your 3/4 inch screws, put them in on each side. And your nylock nuts, again with your flat side up. Get those started on each one. And then you'll go ahead and tighten these all the way up with your Allen key and your 3/8 inch socket. And then once you have both of these tightened, we're going to move on to the connection up here at the top. All right, since these are fairly long screws, if your socket isn't deep enough, just use an open-ended wrench to do the final tightening on it. or you can just use any sort of gripper wrench if you want. That's good. All right, so then you're going to want to take your L brackets, 3/4 inch bolt, and an eye lock nut. And these, remain loose once you have these tightened up, and that's where they're designed to be. But you can just put your bolt through, and then we like to just have the the bolt pointing in, and then we just mirror it on the other side. The other one will be pointing in this way. And then you put your other L bracket on, and then get the nylock nut on there. And we'll tighten that up. Once we have that tightened up, then we'll get it connected to the car. Okay, then you want to make sure you've got your rod straight, or if you want to angle it in some, you can, or angle it out. But if you have it in the position you want it, then you want to get the screw, one of the black-headed screws, through the hole, and then make very sure you're in the right place where you want to be, because there is, on some models, there's a screw that's in a different place. This model, the screw's a little bit over here, but on Hellcats, the screw's a little bit closer. So you just want to make sure that you're not hitting this stock screw that's up in there. So once you're absolutely sure that you're straight, then you want to go ahead and get the screw going in. And it's best if you use a power tool if you can for this, because it can be kind of difficult to get it in there. Or you can start it with a hand screw so you're sure it's in the right place, and then go. Because there are two layers. There's a layer of plastic here, and there's another layer of plastic behind this black plastic here. So you're going to want to push up really hard while you're doing it, because you want it to go through both layers of plastic. If when you're screwing it in, if the plastic starts coming down, this plastic does, don't worry about that. Just pull the screw back out, and then push even harder, and then start the screw again, and make sure it's not pulling this black plastic down as it grips the other layer of plastic behind it, because it's going to have to drill through it as well. So sometimes while it's drilling through it, it starts pulling this down. So just loosen it back up, let it go back flat, then drill it back in again. So here is how it will kind of pull the plastic away from the other, and you can see the screw in there. So you just loosen it up, let it go back flat like it is now, then tighten it back in. And then you see how it holds it back up. You can still see a little bit of gap, so you can just do it again to try to get that gap closed. And of course, you won't really be able to see it, but we like to make sure everything is closed up good. And then once you start the other screw, don't get the first screw tightened all the way quite yet. And then you'll get your other screw going, and it can be a little bit tricky because you've got the bolt to deal with right here, but you can get around it. And sometimes if you just get it in with the power tool, if you can get it started, then you can easily get it in with the hand tool. Then we'll be doing the same thing of making sure the gap is closed, loosening it up, tightening it back up. And then also with everything else that's going into plastic, you want to go back and do the final tightening on these by hand. Don't get this all the way tight with the power tool. All right, so then you just want to come back, stubby screwdriver, and hand tighten them. Again, don't tighten too tight to where they strip out. It is 2 layers of plastic, so it does have really good hold, but still don't want to strip it out. All right, so now we're gonna do the install of the winglet. If you've got a winglet version, you gotta make sure that the countersunk holes are facing out. So it goes on like that. And then what we're gonna do first You know, and this can actually be done before you install it on the car. We're just doing it afterwards because we wanted to show with and without wings. So, because the wingless version doesn't have these holes. So if you buy the wingless version, don't worry, those holes won't be there. So, you know, we can go ahead and, you know, we'll put the screw going in from the top, and it'll be one of the small 1/2-inch screws going to the top. And then I have a nylock nut that will go on it from underneath. Just get them, you know, hand tighten as much as you can at first. Do the same for the back one. And then I'm gonna put the bolt in there into the countersunk hole. Put it through the hole. And then always remember, make sure you got the flat side of the nylock nut going onto the bolt first. Oop. Kind of fun getting these on there. Hand tighten that, get this other one in. And then once you've got all 4 on there holding it on, you'll want to move the winglet so that it's right in the spot where you want it. You know, because you can move it around so that you can, you know, get it right on there. And then, yeah, tighten them up. So we recommend tightening these first. Tighten these here first, then making sure of your distance from the, from the splitter. You know, get it on there and then tighten it up, and also make sure that you're good in the back here. And tighten everything up and you're ready to go. Then do the same for the other side and your install is done. Okay, so whenever you're doing the winglets, make sure that the winglet is actually outside, you know, it sits outside of the splitter. You know, it won't sit on top of it, it'll sit next to it, so that you'll have it just like that.